Welcome back to Off Record On Point, the workplace culture podcast with that all-important twist. I'm Julia Linehan, founder and CEO of The Digital Voice.
And I'm Casey Long. Today, we're joined by the brilliant Sally Henderson, changemaker and high-stakes leadership mentor. And as always, you can check the description for our usual list of resources to keep the conversation going. Here's a sneak peek at what's in store.
You've said don't bring your whole self to work. Now, this is an interesting one because we want to understand where you're going with it.
When I say don't bring your whole self to work, I'm being a bit provocative on purpose. What I'm not saying is mask.
It's almost like when people say, yeah, can't see it, can't be it kind of thing as well. It's almost like you need that visualization element of it.
You need to be able to write it down. So if anyone here is listening and you want to make a squiggly career move or any move, write down what you're looking for. And try saying it out loud in a mirror and see how you feel.
So what do you do when you've changed and you said, I can effect change immediately? The CEO has become a change maker. They got it. They understand it. And they go and try and implement all these incredible changes, and their investment or shareholders rain on their parade.
I can only work with what I can work with, and my client can only work with what they can work with. But you can equip people to know how to navigate those challenges better.
It's getting them to manage upwards.
Oh, all the time.
What does it really mean to be a change maker?
Do you know where I instinctively go? I think what you have to have in the beginning is to care. Yeah, because change is hard.
We're huge fans of mentoring here at The Digital Voice, and we've had a couple of guests on to discuss the topic in the past. But today is all about leadership mentoring with no holds bar. What's the lowdown, Julia?
Do you know what it's all about today? Changing the leadership game. And that's the topic, and one that's very close to our hearts. But I'm actually going to nick Sally's own words from her LinkedIn post to kind of frame the session. Here we go. So Sally wrote, high stakes leadership mentoring is for high performing senior leaders and teams who want to achieve success that feels right. It's the best of both coaching and mentoring, and will transform who you are and how you lead. I love that. That basically is it in a nutshell. I mean, we're huge fans of mentoring. I'm a mentor, and I also am mentored myself. And I've seen the benefits in absolutely hands down what it's done and what effect it's had on my life and my business. So I'm so excited. And I know Casey is to welcome you, Sally, as our guest today. Welcome.
Yes, welcome, Sally.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here. I've been looking forward to this immensely.
Oh, good. We'll make it short.
Amazing.
It's fun then. Well, I'm going to start you off with, this is quite a tough one, because I want you to say in a minute or less who you are and where you got to where you are today.
Well, I'm Sally Henderson, high stakes leadership mentor, and I'm here to equip senior teams and leaders with an emotional and practical toolkit so that they can excel. And how I got here was by sheer determination, grit, and never bloody giving up.
Nice.
Do you know what? You've done it.
Perfect.
You've done it in
That's well under the minute.
That is so perfect. So I'm going to be quiet. This is Casey and I were talking about this, and we love your walk and talk.
Yes.
Oh.
But we have a question about where health and safety comes in, because I'm always worried about, are you going to fall over? How the hell do you keep walking and talking? And you don't stop the flow. It's on point, and you don't trip up. Have there actually ever been any times where you have?
No, but you get to check out the back of my hair when I check if a car's coming. You know, I do the good L'Oreal swish.
They feel like they just very naturally flow. And obviously you must think in them before you start your walk and talk, what am I going to cover today? But does it really just come that naturally that it flows?
Yes. Oh, well, sometimes in a couple of takes, I'll be honest. But I started doing them. I'm actually going to get back on the wagon because I haven't done them for a while, apart from literally last week. I was like, right, I felt inspired to do them again. But I used to go to London twice a week. I live in Tunbridge Wells, and I was very much in the midst of building the business. I wanted to make every moment count. I thought, right, I've got this walk to the station. I have to do it when I'm walking down the hill, not up, because I get too puffy.
Yeah.
I do it the other way. But I was like, right, I've got this time that I might as well use and put to good use. So I would literally start thinking about what I was going to say as I left the house. It's like an 18-minute walk. You can tell I used to be a commuter, hey, 18-minute walk. And then I would think of a subject. I had to really overcome the fear factor. Because when I used to hold no selfie. I just hold the phone out in front of me. I used to try and time it initially when no one was coming, because I'd be a bit British. Like,
Yeah,
oh
don't look at me.
And then I had to get over that and think, sod it, I've got this much time. I've got a certain area where between there and there, I know I need to record it. And then I used to do the editing as I was waiting for the train, write it up, and then hit send. So it was very rough, very raw, but really real. And my whole point of my work, my program's called The Real Method. It would be, what do I get the sense will just help people? What am I hearing in the market from clients? And what little tidbit, walk and talk, can I just offer some inspiration? And one person really kindly fed back to me once. He went, oh my God, how do you find that energy at that time in the day? Because the walk and talks are there to inspire, to provoke, to help, but be practical. There's little nuggets that you can action.
Nuggets of brilliance. We're all for that.
Oh, yeah. And when we think about those nuggets of brilliance, then, because they're all brilliant messages that you're hoping to obviously get a hold of different leaders that are scrolling on their pages that want to become change makers, how would you define, or what does it really mean to be a change maker?
Oh, I love that question.
Oh, yeah. What a wonderful question. Do you know where I instinctively go? I think what you have to have in the beginning is to care. Yeah, because change is hard. It's demanding. It's never a smooth linear path. It can throw up unexpected hurdles. It can throw in beautiful, wonderful moments you weren't expecting, and everything in between. And if you don't care, first and foremost, about the change, if you don't believe in it, if it's not meaningful, and I'm not saying it has to be meaningful in a worthy cause. It could be meaningful because you want to make a shed load of money. Let's be very clear. Business should make money, and that's a good thing. But if you're leading a change as a leader, and you need to have followers, you can't lead if you can't get followers. It's a very obvious statement, but people forget. We are animalistic beings, and we sense energy, emotion, and you can tell if the smile doesn't reach someone's eyes, can't you? And if you're asking people to commit to change, especially in the current climate where we've had nothing but a lot of difficult change and uncertainty on unprecedented scales, people sense that you care about the cause, the result, them, hopefully the whole thing, they'll back you. Yeah, they'll trust in you, and they will follow you. So to be a really great change maker, you start with caring. You've got to have conviction. Yeah, caring's one thing, but you can't just be like, oh, it's not. You've got to really have conviction, clarity around the vision, how to make it happen, to be ahead of the change curve. That's what I really help my clients with all the time. The change curve is demanding. If you're behind it, you're going to be constantly overwhelmed. So you've got to get in front of the change curve, and that clarity, that conviction. And then the last thing, it might sound boring, a little less sexy and glamorous than the rest, commit. Yeah. Because change isn't going to happen overnight. It's definitely a marathon. You've got to be a pace setter. So you have to commit for the long haul. And to be able to have that conviction so strong that when the going does get tough, because any change that's worthwhile will be difficult.
I love it. The 4 C's of a change maker.
Yeah, do you know what we always say is when we make changes, and whether that be a new team member or a new client, it's double the work to half the work. And therefore, the more you put in, it is going to be harder, but it will reap the benefits. But I wanted to touch on something actually that you just said there. It's been a difficult year. There's no doubt it's been tough the last year or two. And I wonder if that's driven more people to come knocking at your door, Sally, and going, I need to change things up, and what they're saying is driving them. What are the main things that are going, I've got to change?
I think it's education, Julia. I think in the years gone by, a lot of people would think, oh, mentoring, coaching, it's a luxury, it's remedial. You only get someone in if it's going wrong. And there's been this wonderful enlightenment that why wouldn't you have someone like me in your corner? Where would you turn away from that competitive advantage and go, no, I can do it all on my own. It's okay. I've got this. And I liken it to, it's a cheesy cliche, and forgive me, but it works. The Olympian athlete. Yeah. It's absolute fact that you cannot be an Olympian based on talent alone, because you've got to have the team of experts. It's a sport. It's an industry. You've got to have the experts working on your talent and expertise to get you to that peak performance. And I think I would say it's been a tough 4 years. Yeah, even 5. And I think we forget that at our peril, that you go, oh, look. And I'd said some posts on LinkedIn recently that why is January the new year? Surely it's the worst month.
I've seen a lot of that this year as well, though, where it's like, why can't the new year actually be in April?
Yeah.
Or like, like the world is hibernating in the winter, maybe we should too. Like, let's give it a little more time. That really resonates with me big time, Sally.
Yeah. Because I think people are knackered.
Yeah.
Emotionally, it's tough. Like the market, don't get me wrong, competition is great. Challenging conditions to, that change we talked about to work through can be really motivating, can cause innovation like never before. But I think what people are also realizing and why they are investing more in their own development and own growth is because we are in deficit of normal times. Yeah. I know when I was younger and I had my first ever business and I went through at least two proper recessions, but we had a break as a business leader back then. We had at least 1 or 2 years to stabilize, to kind of go, oh, the market is normal in whatever that means, and we'll just trade as we've normally traded and brace ourselves for when the next change happens. We have not had a moment of normality in 4 to 5 years.
No, hasn't it felt like a little bit lurching from one crisis to another with no reprieve? And the only good thing is we've been in this season, actually, we've had a lot of guests, and I'm really reassured to hear that the shoots are emerging of positivity, and hopefully this time, it's kind of in a few months' time, we're going to start really seeing that. I mean, I see glass half full, and I'm always going to, but we actually are quite relieved to hear a lot of our guests saying the same.
Oh, I'm working with clients who are on fire. My business has been on fire for 2 years. And is that a bit of circumstance? Maybe, but I put it down to that piece that it said in the beginning: perseverance, determination, pushing through, walking the walk, not being afraid to fail, putting yourself out there. And then I say that my speciality is working with the best and making them better. And therefore I get to work with people who are at the forefront of their worlds, ambitious, successful, be that a brand, an agency, a network, an independent. But it's about the people who want to win, at the end of the day, who want to grow, who want to be the best. And that to me is just so exciting. And I think because that's my client base, it's hand in glove that they invest in their growth, and they don't see it as a cost or a luxury. They just see it as a norm. And that's wonderful.
Well, it's great that overall, it sounds like it generally feels like a very positive sentiment coming in from the industry, from a lot of leaders that you work with. I'd be curious to know, though, Sally, what is the biggest thing people might be surprised to learn leaders are facing currently? And generally, is there any other feelings that you're gauging from any clients at the minute?
Well, I was just going to say a little caveat that yes, there's a lot of positivity, but it comes at a cost, because the market, as we've been talking about, the world, it's not the market, it's the bloody world, has been difficult for a long time in ways that have never been seen before. And sadly, war and things like that, and economics, we have sadly seen those before. But the pandemic, we haven't. The environment, crikey, that's just a constant piece everyone kind of just sticks their head in the sand about. But this stuff is massive, and we carry it all the time. So I think when clients come to me, what I'm seeing they're really responding well to, and what they're asking for is firstly space, just at a moment. And especially in teams, I've been having amazing experiences with senior exec teams where they've gone, oh my God, we're in a room without an agenda. Yeah, and obviously I have my agenda, but help them. But they're not working on a business agenda. They're not having to think about all other people's needs. They're going, I've got some time to think about us, just us as a group, our needs. So I'm hearing that clients really want time and space just to catch their breath.
Yeah, you need it.
That actually makes us all want to go, if all of our listeners can just breathe. Producer Ren's taking a breath, like Aurelia taking a breath. It's amazing how powerful that one thing is, isn't it?
Oh my God. And also what I've been noticing from clients, what they're really craving is perspective. Yeah, a fresh perspective. And my job, and the way I do my job, I feel very blessed that I can change someone's perspective very fast, in minutes, by the right intervention, the right language, the right blend of care and challenge, and being very candid and direct. you can change someone's perspective. And if you can do that for the better, for the positive, suddenly their world's different. Just doesn't feel different. It is different. And I think leaders are often in a vacuum, especially CEOs. Hey, Julia. Leaders, a lot of people are telling leader maybe what they think they want to hear, or they're not quite sure how to word something. Because I have a very privileged position. I will tell you whatever I think is right. without asking your permission. I'll do it carefully and with the respect and with compassion.
Of course.
But my bonus, my career, my employment isn't linked to how you react. Yeah, it is as my client, obviously, but I'm not under your watch, and that client is having someone going, here's a perspective. It just changes their day and changes their world.
Actually, I've got a question then on that, because I'm very lucky that I'm CEO and founder of a company that is independently owned. It's not owned by anyone else. There are no other stakeholders. So we get the privileged position of being able to do what we want and run it how we want to. But there's a lot of CEOs that are beholden to the investors. So what do you do when you've changed and you said, oh, I can effect change immediately? The CEO has become a change maker. They got it. They understand it. And they go and try and implement all these incredible changes, and their investment or shareholders
squash
rain
it
on their parade. What do you do then? Do you almost need to go to the shareholders and say, come along for the ride? Or
it's a whole chain of command, a whole chain of influence. And I can only work with what I can work with, and my client can only work with what they can work with. But you can equip people to know how to navigate those challenges better.
Got it. Okay, so it's getting them to manage upwards.
Oh, all the time. And if they're in, and also if a CEO is in that kind of environment, more often than not, it's because they've chosen to be. So they like that environment. They like having that scale or that complexity or the layers around them. So normally they're not coming into that completely cold, going, gosh, how does this work? They've been in that environment for a while to become the CEO in that environment. And that's part of the fun. That's part of the challenge. Is how do we get those other stakeholders, the investors, people with maybe sometimes completely different agendas? How do we get their connection with the change to be supportive and backed, whilst also making sure the employees and the customers and whoever, but it has to start from inside the human.
And leaders and followers, and that I guess does make a lot of sense. Your followers don't have to all come from the same pool of people. I guess in that case, you've got to pull in other people.
There's an interesting word that clients use a lot when they're in big, complex matrix structures that I work with, and it's sponsors, allies and sponsors. It's not just about the chain of command and who you naturally report into. It's knowing which battles to pick, which ones to let go, but making sure when you're being a change maker in whatever landscape you're operating in, be it a complex matrix or an independent, you've got the sponsors who will back you. Without those, everyone's an island. You can't influence change without sponsors and allies. I don't know, this is a bit of an oldie, but it's such a good one. Have you come across the leadership case study that became a TED talk and everything about the dancing man on the hill?
No, I have monkey management, but I haven't got dancing man on the hill.
Okay, so this is fabulous. It's very bad quality, the video, sadly, but the message is brilliant. So maybe we can put in the comments a link if you Google this, because it's so powerful. And then you have a whole TED talk where they do the whole layers of leadership. Very clever. So it's in, I think, somewhere like New Zealand. And there's a guy who's dancing his heart out on a hill at a kind of gig, some festival gig. And he is the only one. And this guy is just some random dude who's living his best life, who is totally dancing badly. Right, there's not a moment of cool about this anywhere. Okay,
but maybe with conviction.
Oh, utter conviction. And he is having the best time, and everyone else is sat around looking really quite dull and boring. So he's the anomaly, he's the odd one out. And then one guy comes running into shot and starts to dance his heart out next to the dancing man. And when the guy's narrating it, he's like going, and there's the first follower, because you can't be a leader without getting your first follower. And then other people start to be attracted to this fun, this energy, this movement that's happening on the hill, to the point, and if you watch the camera, you watch the film, it's hilarious, to the point everybody starts running. You can't even see the original dancing man because there are now probably about 150 people.
Oh my gosh.
All dancing their hearts out in totally uncool ways because he's kind of given permission for dad dancing.
Right.
You know, he's just going for it. To the point that then what's fascinating by the end of the little video, it's only a few minutes, is the only few people who remain sitting down, where people jump over them literally to get to the party.
Oh my gosh.
They become the anomalies.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful around that dance. You've got to be that dancing man to start, and attract people to you.
That's awesome.
I think it's so important. I mean, I always say, you know, I have to have my team, and those who join the Digital Voice, they have to have two key elements really, and that's energy and kindness. And they've got to be able to mirror really me, because those were my values, and that's probably what puts in the most important. But I do always say, luckily Casey joined, was one of the first on the team, and she's matched me energy for energy. But it's just, it doesn't have to come out in full on, like I'm quite visually energetic as well as verbally energetic, but it has to be that energy for what you're committing to, and also that level of kindness and empathy as well. So I think you take people along for the ride, and they have to mirror you.
Dancing on that hill. I love that. I'm going to have to watch that straight after this. I would love to circle back to another topic that I know means a lot to Julia, and I know, Sally, it means a lot to you as well, and that is mentorship. You are a brilliant mentor, as well as Julia. We believe everyone should have one, no matter where they're at in their career stage. It's so important. We've got to know, though, because I've seen Julia try to juggle it and fit it into her jam-packed diary. Sally, where do you find the time, and what drives you to keep being a mentor in the industry?
Well, I would say it's my profession, so it's a little bit different. It's at the core. It's everything that I do is mentoring, leadership mentoring. I do also coach within that. I think but there's a differentiation, because I give an opinion and I give advice and instruction. So if you like, I'm a high level instructor to experts. And at the time, though, they say, look, ask a busy person to get something done, don't they? And it comes back to my point around care. And if I believe in something, I will make the time. You know, and I'm fast. I'm lucky. I'm a fast worker. So for me, I'm a former headhunter. I always say one of the good ones when I say that. The reason, hashtag cared all the way through. What I loved about the headhunting world, and actually what I found missing when I first left that world, because I did an interesting career flip midway through, was I missed the pace. I missed the juggle. I missed having to get loads of different layers working at different paces to all come to a great fruition consistently. You know, as Julia knows, when you own your own business, when you have people responsible for you, you've got to have pipeline. You've got to juggle plates. So I think, the mentoring, and if I can, I've done, free things for Wackle, for Stella, for no, Omniman was paid actually, but
and that's where, Casey, you were going with it, wasn't it? Because it's those community mentorship programs that I know you're like, you fit in, even though it is your business is the high stakes leadership coaching, but it feels like you're still leaning in on those other community mentorships. I think it's really important.
More broadly, within the industry, definitely.
Yeah, and even when the groups I'm in, like the Wealthy Group, you created, Julia, with your peers, and DLL, and the Tunbridge Wells Media Group, we're all helping each other. And for me, a phrase I coined when COVID was happening, and we were all kind of dealing with that, just the hashtag, it's not unique to me, but the one that really spoke to me was better together.
Yeah.
We always say stronger together, and I think it's that one. Well, let's think about another phrase that you've coined, right, Sally? You've said, don't bring your whole self to work. Now, this is an interesting one, because we want to understand where you're going with it.
What am I leaving behind?
Yeah, because most people are like, you got to commit. You've got that. You got to commit, but don't bring your whole self. So, how much do you bring? Where do you know where's the off switch?
I think it had a really lovely place when people were making the mistake of being fake. Yeah, when you felt you had to put a mask on at work, or you felt like you couldn't talk about being a parent, or things that are going on in your real world. Like maybe you've had a really horrible day and you're going into the office and you have to be all shiny and everything's fine and being a robot. And so I think when it first came into its being, it was really helpful. But I think like anything, it's just become a bit assumed what it means. And I think we want to just tighten it back up for what the world is today. And so when I say don't bring your whole self to work, I'm being a bit provocative on purpose. What I'm not saying is mask, be one thing in work, one thing out of work. What I'm saying is choose which levers and which parts of your identity you want to have accessible and switched on at any given time. So when I'm teaching my clients, one of the tools from the real method is called PIPI, which is personal identity, professional identity. And I've given this at talks at Albright. I've given it, I think I did it at Wackle. I've done it in loads of great forums where it's been really well received. And you create a visual representation of who you are outside of work, purely outside of work. Things that make you you. That might be fitness, being a parent, not being a parent. Not everyone has to be a parent here, an animal lover, traveler, things that just are make you happy as a pure human. Okay, passions, interests, what goes on in your world. And then you do one for work. So who are you as a work person? Like what's important and valuable and meaningful to you in the world of work? Because here's the thing that I think we've forgotten or overlooked. The norms and rules and deviance between professional and personal worlds are rightly different. Okay. So if I rocked up to this wonderful conversation that I'm loving and treated you like my mum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously, I talk to you like you're my mother, right? Or I'm your mother and you're my children. Or you're my best friend, Alison, since I was 9.
Yeah.
If I act that way with you in a work context that I would act with my mum, they're not appropriate. They don't fit. So, but the beauty is if you've got clarity on who you are inside and outside of work and the way that you show up, the values, the beliefs, which will be aligned. Yeah, I'm not saying that there'll be an absolute synergy and DNA through those, but they will be different because they should be. I always say as well, look, if a family ever fires you because of a spreadsheet, something's gone really wrong. Okay. But a company rightly should fire you from a spreadsheet if they can't afford to keep you. It's the right behavior. It's not the right behavior in a family to behave in that way. But we've kind of got a bit, I would never describe a company as a family because I think it's misleading. I think it can be an incredibly tight-knit group of people on a mission. But I prefer, there's a company who talk like this as well, but I can't remember their name right now, about being a high-performance team. Yeah, being like in sport, but there's certain expectations and rules that in sport aren't around the family dinner table. And I think that's great. I think why is that not healthy? It's got to be done ethically and with care, and you've got to know what you're signing up to. But I think the rules of the game have become so blurred. Once you become more aware of who you are inside and outside of work, then you can play across those two. So if I'm working with a client who is a parent, we have something in common from our personal lives. But it doesn't mean that part of me is going to be always on and available because that's an energy drain. It's like having all the tabs of your computer on. Yeah, you don't want that. You want the right tabs on at the right time, ideally. Never see my desktop.
No, I was going to say mine. You don't get that on mine either.
But it's just about giving you greater clarity and control about what parts of yourself you want to be accessible and when parts of yourself have permission to sleep and rest. So last little point on this. Often when I'm working with very senior people, especially when I used to be a headhunter, they would say to me, I've never had an interview, Sally. Oh, big, because they've always been headhunted. They've known, but they may never have gone for an interview. And if they find themselves in the job market later in life, not perhaps through choice or it's not through an associate and they don't have the cushion of reputation, they can sometimes go, I've never done an interview or I've never been in a situation. They panic and they become very under the surface, unconfident. But I say to them, well, that's because your personal brain's taken over and your personal brain is going, oh, I've never done this before. Right. But your professional brain, if I said, right, go and pitch for a multi-million account tomorrow with a brand new team, go in and lead that pitch.
You pull that lever.
They'd be like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because different parts of their brain have got a bit muddled about the different skills and abilities that are needed. And once you help people be in the right brain, professional or personal, for the right thing that they're tackling, it's just easier.
Love
Oh,
that.
that's so interesting. Yeah, I do love that. I am again going to spin into a slightly different topic now, but selfishly, this is something that we were curious to ask you, Sally. When you talk about working with, big clients and making multi-million dollar pitches and things like that, you've worked with these big, massive brands. Obviously, we being a smaller company, who have you seen out of both sides been more willing to take risks to become a change maker? Is it that big brand that's just revolutionizing it and transforming, or is it a smaller company that's just going for it and willing to put themselves out there a bit more?
If only I could give you an answer to that. That was me with a bow on top of it. There is no such thing in terms of it that, for my opinion, being dictated by scale or by heritage. It's about ambition. It's about values. It's about mission. It's about that organization truly believing in what it's there to serve. And you can have massive companies that do that successfully. So Nestle is a key client of mine.
Yeah.
The belief in that business, in that company, whether you agree with some of the way that their practices or not, so, that's not what we're talking about. Because big companies always have a hard time as well with certain things, don't they? It's part and parcel. But just the universal dedication and commitment and internal respect that they share with one another for being part of that overall mission and belief is impressive. It really is. But just like I'm working with a founder when they're on a mission to grow. So the great guy called Steve Weens, if you're listening, Steve, hey, because he actually helped me produce my first ever podcast series that I did years ago. And he's the founder and now global CEO of Distillery, who do kind of social content. And he got me on board when I think he was 12 people in a little basement. And we used to meet in the most horrible office. He won't mind me saying this, but he was part of the complex he was in. And it was far from glamorous. Like, it was on Percy Street, but you couldn't even, you could only see the pavement from where it was that. And he was at a stage of ex-Google, had a vision, and was just going, wow, from being an employee to an employer and then having a team, just in that crunch point. And we worked very passionately together for about 2 years on and off, and extended into some of his team and supporting the team remotely over COVID. I'm so proud of Steve because his conviction and belief in the business he wanted to grow, not just in terms of product, but culture and diversity and equality and just making sure the business was thriving in so many ways. He's now got, I think, last time we and I were chatting, 4 locations globally.
Wow.
One EMEA Independent Agency of the Year campaign a few years ago. And I never forget, I remember when he was 12 people in a shitty office, building his empire, and his conviction, his game changingness on, as I say, so many different issues and causes, as well as a great business. So inspiring, and still is to this day. And his ambition and appetite is just even stronger these days. But what a platform he's built from such humble start.
So you said there about that he had, and as a leader, you must meet a lot of people that have unwavering conviction of the route they want to go down. On the opposite side, we're seeing a lot of people take either forced or unforced squiggly career paths. Now, in my mind, and I think when Casey and I and Ren were talking about this beforehand, we were saying, we think actually that's a bit of a game changer. You're willing to say, I've got to go in a different direction. I've got to be bold. I've got to try something new. Firstly, are you seeing that move towards squiggly careers? And how do you help people that are becoming a leader and a high stakes leader in a whole different industry or different path?
I love the term squiggly careers that's been coined by Helen and Sarah, isn't it?
Yeah, I wrote the book.
I think when I was a headhunter, I always sought out people wanting squiggly careers when it wasn't even doable. So I remember working with a guy who was in client management in agency land and wanted to be a consultant, a strat guy. Every single headhunter told him he couldn't be that because he was a client service person. And I said, you are totally a strategist and I will get you that move. So it's something I used to do as a headhunter. The CEO, a great guy called EJ Wockery, who became the CEO of Wolf Olins. When I just built my first recruitment company many years ago, I think I was the 13th recruiter he called because I'd only just set up the business. No one in London would meet him. because his whole career at that point, and we're going back, God, how many years, 15 or something, I don't know, a long time, for God, no, 20 years, a long time anyway. No one would meet him because back then the world was all about linear. You had to have a very certain prescriptive, and even in the creative industry, you think would be all like, oh, embrace and change. God, no.
Yeah.
Utter linear expectations around talent. And EJ kind of rang me and he expected me just to say no, because every other agency had said no to him. And I just loved the energy in his voice. I loved his background. I used to have a real passion for innovation back then anyway. And I went, I'll meet you. And he went, really? I guess a surprise. Anyway, I supported him. I got him his first gig in London, and he went on to become, I think he did become global CEO of Wolf Olins, the leading
Wow.
consultancy. And so I've partnered people on Squiggly Careers my whole career.
Yeah.
I think they're amazing. I think they're brilliant. And I think to help them thrive, you've just got to believe them.
Yeah.
You've got to believe that and you also have to say no if you don't, by the way. I'd get people saying, oh, I want to go from agency to client side or vice versa. And when I was a headhunter, I'd go, with all due respect, no.
No, it's a bit like going from the buy to the sell side. If you're on some can, but I found minimal haven't. And I found people when I was on the media owner side, and I had agency people come and now work at the Mirror. And one lasted 6 weeks, and she's now very, very senior at one of the big agencies. And I'd said to her, you're amazing, but not at this. You're amazing at agency. This isn't suit. And vice versa. I worked at an agency for a grand total of 7 weeks. It wasn't right for me. I'd always been on the buy side. I'd always been I'm a seller at heart. So you have to know, don't squiggle down a path that you are just not suited for. You still got to think about what you're good at, what your strengths are, and then make those work for that industry, but not square peg round hole.
It's having someone in your corner. So the people that I had such pleasure helping make Squiggly Careers way before it was something that was acceptable to do even.
Yeah.
Just being able to back them, to give them advice, to give them tangible steps. So I think when you're making a Squiggly career change move, the advice I would give to you is break it down into manageable steps. I have a webinar I did when when all the redundancies, which are happening again, when they all hit in a tech center, I gave a webinar giving away my 7 steps that I used to teach as a headhunter all the time.
Oh, fun.
Anybody who wants to make a significant career change, who's been made redundant, who's even going for promotion, the 7 steps that I created can change your life, because they've changed hundreds of people's lives over the years I've been teaching it. But all it does at the end of the day is it makes complicated thinking simple. It makes it into bite-sized, manageable pieces and gives you a kind of escalation of steps that at the end of that, there's 7 of them. So there's not too many, but number 3 is a beast. I warn you now. It's got a lot of steps in number 3. You come out at the end of it just having 3 things. I love to kind of do things, iterate, isn't it? I love to do that. It gives you clarity, confidence, and commitment. They are the 3 C's you need to make change.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, Squiggly Careers are difficult because people don't know what they want. They think they know, but they don't know. So you have to be able to articulate it. If you can't see it, you can't find it.
Sometimes like when people say, yeah, can't see it, can't be it kind of thing as well. It's almost like you need that visualization element of it.
You need to be able to write it down. So if anyone here is listening and you want to make a Squiggly career move or any move, write down what you're looking for. And try saying it out loud in a mirror and see how you feel. Because if you can't say it with conviction looking at yourself, how do you expect anyone else to believe you?
Yeah.
You've then got to get confident about this working and work out all the reasons why this can happen, not all the barriers as to why it won't. And that will test your conviction. Back to that Stevie we said at the beginning. If you're not committed to it, or you haven't got that conviction, rather, you won't see it through. And then the 3rd C is commit. Go again, go again, go again, go again.
Love it.
If your talent is truly there, or the potential talent is truly there, and you're prepared to take a risk, because you can't achieve it without risk, and then you make the decision to back yourself and you recruit the right people to support you, be that officially or also just as mates, as advisors, as mentors, then you're set up for success.
Your allies.
I think that's so important. That's such good advice. And I think one final question that I have, and then we've got your quick fire round, is on advice. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, because there is a lot of bad advice going around, and there is a deluge of coaches, business coaches, life coaches. You can't you can't look left or right on LinkedIn without seeing one new person present their certification. And I know I've had so many good stories about so many good ones, but I also could get concerned when I hear negative stories, and I think there's too many. In all honesty, what's your thoughts? Do we feel like we're getting a bit saturated? Do we think that there's some coaches coming in there thinking it's easy money?
Yeah, 100%. I went on a course. I won't name names because everyone's got their subjective view, but I went on a course years and years ago, very famous global institution, which I actually found was very reckless, because they take you on this coaching course through their model, and then they, with a belief that your clients, I'll have to be careful to use the right language so it's not too obvious who they are, but basically they were teaching people that every client is able to cope. Basically, just know that at the inner core of whoever you're working with, they've got the ability to solve whatever they need to solve. Utter rubbish. Rubbish. Yeah. And they would send these people off who had perhaps only just started coaching through this one experience of this training course, which is like 6 months, but we did the intensive at 6 weeks. But like it's in blocks. So it's very surface. And there was from my perspective, no moral compass on your responsibility, that when you offer to coach, mentor, give advice to anybody, that comes with huge responsibility.
Yeah.
I say to my clients, I'm not a counselor, not a psychologist. I don't pretend to be. I don't want to be. I'm not skilled to be. I will take you to the line of my work, but I won't go over it. So if I don't think I'm the right person to be talking with you about a certain subject, I will absolutely not go there with you. And I think, there are so many people out there who go into the coaching world and they don't own it. They maybe get taught another person's model and they're just a facilitator of that model. And I'm not saying that's wrong, by the way, because everyone can do different things, and I'm not right for everyone. That's totally fine. But you have to know what you're accountable for, and be really proven that you can do that. I think, and that's not always a certificate, by the way. It can come by, because actually that could be the worst. I've got a certificate, and now I'm capable.
I think it's as well, people need to really think about the right fit, as you say, and also just making sure due diligence and look up people like Sally that comes highly recommended, because they'll give you, that's testimony to knowing who works and who's actually going to do a good job.
And I will recommend other people. If I'm not right, I'll be the first to say, do you know what? I don't think we are a right match, but I reckon so-and-so is. Go and talk to them.
Yeah.
Because a good coach or a good mentor will also do that.
We'll also do that. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, we're not quite done with you yet, are we, Casey? We got
Oh no, it's time.
Quick fire. So you've got to say the first thing that comes into your mind. We're delving deep into the mind of Sally Henderson. In 3, 2, 1. What was your squiggly career mistake?
Staying in a company I'd outgrown too long.
Ooh, nice.
We won't name names. What career traps have you fallen into in the past?
Ego, when I was in my 20s, getting a bit big for my boots.
I think that happens to everyone in their 20s. If I could go back in time, I'd have a word with myself. Have you ever worked with somebody who turned out to be unchangeable?
Yes, once. Only once, which I don't think is bad given the record. And you know what? This is when I should have probably said no. I knew I could help them, but I did have an intuitive feel. Would the leopard change its spots?
They didn't want to change themselves to begin with.
And the clue was when our session started getting moved again.
Oh, boy.
And again. And then I just had to call it. I said, look, you're not committed. And I can't, in the nicest way, I can't waste my time
help
on you.
If you're not wanting to be helped. I love that.
If you're not truly committed to seeing it through, which is, do you know what as well? That's okay. Not everybody can all the time.
Yeah.
But there was this one person which I kind of thought, I'm not surprised. And then note to self, we're always learning. And if I was going to criticize myself, I should have called out that niggle better, quicker.
Called it sin. Don't worry. In Agatha Christie's Poirot, there's actually one crime that he didn't solve. So you're always allowed the one. That's so random. I got Renz and Chameleon about looking at me like I'm insane. But that's okay. Right. What was the point in, is there any mentorship advice you used to give that you don't anymore?
Oh.
No.
She's that good. Love it. Okay. Was there a point in your journey where your career could have gone in a completely different path?
So when I got frozen and I got a bit stuck in a company, I got headhunted by every competitor, which was very nice in my 20s, hence the ego got a bit high. And if I'd gone and worked for a larger company, then maybe I would never have even set up my own company in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And that would have been a different path, and different isn't wrong, but it's just that's really good perception on that. So, of all the companies you've mentored and been a high stakes leadership trainer for, are there any you wish you were CEO for? That you think I could take that job?
No, because I love my job.
Okay.
I truly and utterly love what I do. And I love making CEOs better. That doesn't mean to say I myself would ever want to be a CEO.
You look at their roles and go, I'm all right.
No, I utterly adore my job. And that's what makes me happy. So I'm sticking.
You stick.
Nice.
You can stick rather than twist. What's the best life lesson? This is final question. What's the best life lesson you've ever learned from a mistake?
Don't give your power away to others, especially when they don't deserve it.
Ooh.
Keep hold of that power. I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Sally. You've survived the quick fire round. And I know, just in a nutshell, this is going to be quite hard to do, to pinpoint some of the things you've said. But so as far from what you've said, I've taken away that people need to invest in their growth. It's about commitment and kindness are the two things that will carry you forward, that will allow you to change. It's as important to sometimes have meetings where you cut the agenda, you take a moment and breathe and get your teams to breathe. Don't bring your whole self, but understand which parts of yourself are important to bring into your personal life and your professional life. There were so many other nuggets that I could keep going and going and going, but you have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation today.
Oh, it's been a joy.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sally. That is a wrap on this episode, but we don't believe there's ever a wrap on how much mentoring and coaching can help. You can check out the description and our website for more reading and resources. Check out the Dancing Man somewhere down in the description, and more from Sally. Head over to sallyhenderson.co.uk. Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sally. You've been fabulous.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Off Record On Point. Join us again next time for another confession by an industry changemaker. But until then, I'm Julia Linehan.
And I'm Casey Long. Enjoyed the conversation? Reach out and let us know by rating and reviewing on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to follow to never miss an episode.
You can stay connected with us at thedigitalvoice.co.uk and across all our social channels. Just look out for The Digital Voice.
Join us again next time for another undercover industry deep dive, all off record, all on point.